going to, all these people wearing t-shirts, if not, just lay it in front of you. And then I'm going to take a picture of all of you.
Some people are. Some people are.
Look at that, isn't that lovely? Cozy. Just tuck in behind those t-shirts. It actually looks better with you trying to do it. It's much funnier. Look at this chaos. Because I couldn't afford the tickets to get in here.
That is true.
Come on, camera, do your stuff. That's looking pretty good now. Okay, you're beautiful in the front row here. That's it. I'm gonna get everybody. Everybody's gonna do it. And over here. That's 8 o'clock. All right. Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Justin Johnson, and I'm delighted to welcome Terry Gilliam to the stage. It's happened already. Terry, thank you for being with us. Obviously, the film has been a long time, not just a long time in terms of the making.
Because it wasn't released, but it's nice that, yeah, it's finally getting there. It'll be actually 30 years from the beginning.
So it's 30 years since you first read the book?
Yes, 30 years since before I read the book, though, I called Jake Eberts, who was Goldcrest. I don't know if you remember Goldcrest. They made Chariots of Fire, lots of wonderful films. And he was the executive producer on Baron Munchausen. And I said, Jake, I need $20 million. I've got 2 names for you. One is Quixote and the other is Gilliam. And he says, you got the money. It was so easy. And then I got out the book and read it. And then realized I'm in deep shit. This is a hard thing to deal with. And immediately somebody else offered me more money. That's when I was hot in those days. And I walked across the street, and then they didn't quite get their act together. The whole thing started falling apart there. And the conversation is all about if only. If only I hadn't done that, or more importantly, if I had done that. And that's how they spend their days. And one of them basically had enough of that and said, all right, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to become Don Quixote. And that's where it started. But I didn't like the script that much, and we marched on for some time with that one. And then finally changed the idea and made it, because basically to save money is what I was doing. And I was trying to set part of it in the modern world, because the book is written in the 17th century. Yeah, 1605 written. And Quixote is talking about a world from the 12th century. And I thought, how does a modern audience understand the difference? Because the costumes all look old and period and blah, blah, blah. So the next leap was to then take it to, let's have a modern guy in there, a modern advertising guy, because I love the idea of a guy who sells dreams as opposed to a man who dreams. Dreams, basically, Quixote. And off we went with that, and that's what we started shooting in 2000 with Johnny Depp and Jean Rochefort. And 5 days later, we stopped shooting. I think most of you have seen Lost in La Mancha. If not, watch it. It really, anybody who wants to get into films, watch that first.
Just to clarify, during those 5 days, there was a big flood.
God's flood, yes.
And that kind of would damage a lot of the stuff that you built.
Yes, every 15 minutes, fighter jets were flying over. They were preparing to go to fight in Kosovo, in Serbia. We didn't know that at the time when we chose that location. And what else? Jean Rochefort, who at the beginning of the process spoke no English, and for 7 months he worked his ass off to speak English well. And he was a great horse rider, very fit. And he had come down before we started shooting, and this was going to be fantastic. And a couple of weeks later, he returned. And suddenly he'd aged like 20 years, and something had been affecting him, infecting. We didn't really know. And he insisted on carrying on, and that's what happened on the fifth day. After all everything else, the flood, the bombers, was he. The first AD said, "We got to stop shooting," and Jean said, "No, we have to continue." And he got back on the horse, and that was it. He couldn't function. He had to be lifted off by several men. He was flown out back to Paris on a helicopter, and the show was over, and that was it. So,
and when you look back upon the
20th century, which saved us a lot of money.
And during those kind of 15, 16 years in between, and obviously you were making other films at the same time as trying to get this made, but there were a number of different casts came and went. There was like Robert Duvall and
Ewan McGregor.
At one point, Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, Jack McConnell, Michael Palin. Who else was there? That was the key ones. Yeah, we would each couple years we'd go to like the Cannes Festival and announce the new cast and wait for the money to come flowing in, and the money never flowed in. It was the way the film was ultimately financed was extraordinary, because the marketplace, as we talk of it, for all these years would only come up with X amount of money. I knew the film was going to cost $16 million, and we could raise about 12.5. We were always short. Basically, we were short about 3.5 is what we were short always. We could never get beyond that. Until my daughter Amy, who is one of the producers, met a lady who late in life had come into some healthy sums of money. And she had seen Lost and Monster. She wanted to see the film made. She realized what we had gone through. And she was like the fairy godmother in Cinderella. "Terry, you shall go to the ball." Bing! 3.5 million smackers, yes! And that's how we made the film.
But that isn't unlike what happened with George Harrison wanting to see Life of Brian being made, is it?
We need rich patrons. The business people do not understand what we do, and they don't appreciate it. They're very cautious people. We need very rich people who can throw a few million at us to make it happen. George Harrison, we were, again, with Life of Brian, we were on our way to Tunisia on the Thursday. Yeah, I'm not sure if I believe myself either. No, it was partly because all the sensible people in my life said move on, and I just don't really want to hang around with too many sensible people. I'll hang around with them, but I don't want to listen to them. And it was partly that, and everybody said no, move. It'll never happen. And I'm pig-headed enough to say, all right, fuck you. I'm going to make it happen one day. And so you learn patience in the film business.
And once you actually were now filming the final version that we've seen this evening, was there always part of you worrying that, because finance can be pulled any time, and things can change, were you always kind of, or actually were you then just focused on the film and just moving ahead?
No, once we get going, I just focus on the film. I don't think about the money, and if people drop by the wayside, companies go bankrupt, that's their concern. I want to stay on budget and schedule, and that's what we did. We brought this thing on budget, on schedule. And it's like, credits are very weird on a film. The person on this film that deserves most of the credit is a guy named Yosef Bokhari, who was the line producer who got us through the shoot on time and schedule. So at every point, it's not like you've got this perfect vision in your head that must be done only one way. The business of films is a constantly movable feast. Nature comes in to fuck you up in a can. People get sick, things don't work out the way you plan. You just have to keep trying to tap dance your way through these things. And so the final film is the product of all the things that happened to it, the people that were involved, all the things that went wrong, the things that went right. It's not like we had the perfect plan, which we followed perfectly. That's not what the film is. It's a living organism that's coming to life in the process.
I mean, looking at...
Yeah, because we had to... it was, again, a European co-production. Remember Europe? And so we had French, we had Belgian, we had Spanish, and we had Portuguese money all involved. And so we have to use all these different countries in different ways. And because the bulk of it was shot in Spain, the crew was primarily Spanish. And there were people, a lot of them I had never worked, most of them I hadn't worked with. What was wonderful is that some of them, actors in particular, had been involved in the Johnny Depp version, and they were still alive. and that's what's wonderful. Someone like Rossi De Palma, who plays the farmer's wife, she had signed on back then, and she was still willing to come and do it. One of the guy who plays Sancho in the black and white film, you know, the one that Toby makes when he's 10 years younger, he was involved back then, and he was still willing to come on, or they were thrilled to come on, was what was wonderful. They wanted to be part of something that I think they all felt was an historic achievement, for better or worse.
And Jonathan Pryce, who you've worked with before and is exceptional in this, was he originally involved as well in a different
No way. No fucking way. I mean, Jonathan kept coming around the house for years wanting to play the part, and he was just wrong. He was too young, he was put on weight or what. He was the wrong guy. And it became an embarrassment at a certain point, because I knew Jonathan wanted to play it. I love Jonathan, and we're great friends. And I had to keep dancing around and running off and getting Bobby Duvall or someone else. But then, by the time it finally got together, and Mike Palin, who finally could not wait any longer in this process, who we were involved with a Portuguese producer, Jonathan was there standing outside the door. And he was 70 years old, and he looked great, and there we go. And I can't imagine anybody doing it better.
So maybe that sort of 30 years is all serendipity.
I didn't make it, the film made itself.
And we're going to get some questions from the audience at the moment. I don't obviously want to dwell on this too much, but having made the film, and you must be really pleased to finally exercise your demons in a way, it was then heralded, you know, it's going to be at the Cannes Film Festival, and then you have a problem with the previous producer who steps in and says, I own the rights to this and you can't play it in Cannes. You then, I mean, they reported a stroke, but I don't think it was a stroke, but you were not well, certainly, for
I had one stroke.
You did have a stroke.
The other one, the second one, was not actually a stroke. It was a blocked medullary artery. Now, the medullary artery is an interesting thing. It brings the blood from the outside of your brain into the gray matter in the middle. And this little guy got blocked, and it created the same kind of symptoms that a stroke was.
That stressed you then?
Stressed me, laid me out.
Was it stress that caused that?
The first one was probably, the first one was, actually, you know, Mike had dropped out before because the things had dragged down in negotiation. We had the cast, we had the locations, we had Adam, everything. And then Jonathan came on after Mike walked away. And all the actors were on their way to the airports in cars from all over the world where they were. So to sit down for our first reading, our first meeting, to all together talk about what we're going to do. And he pulled the plug. Boom. And I thought, this is interesting. And the Spanish producers, he was the Portuguese producer, the Spanish producers were desperate. And he believed it as much as we all did. So we were desperate, Spanish were most desperate, to try to get the film made before Christmas 2016. And it's now end of October, and I was supposed to be going down to Spain. And of course, I wanted to get the fucking thing out, understand how you're going crazy into becoming that character. And he was doing that, and as he's doing it, Jonathan started doing the lines along with him, like an echo floating in the air. And I said, fuck this is great. That's the ending. That was not the way we had written it. It was going to be just Adam on his own with his voice. But Jonathan's voice coming in, and which takes over in the course of it. It's like Quixote will never die, and that was important.
Got better.
Can we just remove the air, please?
No,
That's
it
got intro
hasn't.
to it.
It hasn't.
Sorry, there'll be no more
There we go.
signatures.
Okay, hold it really tight. Stretch it. We're going to be on the other side, otherwise the film will start too late. Going to hold it for a few seconds.
Thank you, Tom.
Let me get these guys. They've got stuff. The other guy.
Good evening, this is your final call.
I've got a techie dog, so I'm sure of it. Everybody's got little people.
Yeah, but he's doing everybody's. Oh, he's a gentleman.
Gentleman.
Gentleman, yeah.
A gentleman.
Oh, come on! Pushing you in. Live date. Thanks, Harry.
No, you have to go around behind this place.
It's going to
Yeah,
come out, isn't it? Yeah, I got
Did you give him the wine bottle? You should call them memorabilia.
This is like Virginia for me. That's me, Virginia. You're right.
Virginia.
Yeah. Thank you.